So what I'm going to quickly do is just lay out what you're about to experience, and we're going to hear from some special panelists that I hope you're all excited to hear from. So the panel discussion has a simple but difficult goal to identify. We're going to discuss and share some of the best ways that schools can benefit from technology. So it may sound like a simple topic, but it's actually pretty complex, as all these people can tell you. We won't be able to accomplish this in just this panel, but we're going to at least give it a start and try to get you all thinking. So everyone in this room should plan on learning. It is an education conference after all. We're going to learn about concrete ways that schools can leverage types of technology, games, and social media in education and to improve the classroom experience. So I'm going to assign a little homework as well. That homework is to take something that you've learned at this panel and actually apply it in your life back home. So whether you run a country, run a school, run a classroom, try to apply something that you have learned on this panel, and then we'll view it as a success. But first, it's my pleasure to introduce Neha from STIR Education, which is an NGO that is creating a movement of teacher change makers in India and Uganda. We wanted to have STIR share a few words before we begin. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And my name is Neha, and I'm working with STIR from India. And it's a privilege to be here in Dubai representing all the teachers we are working in India and Uganda who are on the path of to become a teacher change maker. So basically, I work in a country where there are a lot of teachers are facing many problems like large class sizes, parental engagements, and where the focus is not on the learning outcomes. But just to keep us focused, we try and find the bright spots where teachers are innovating in their classrooms as well in the schools. So I just wanted to share one of the ideas where teachers are doing really fabulous job. So one of the school in Punjab in India, so they found that students are not able to understand the questions, and hence they are not able to answer or score good results. So what they did in the classroom is ask each of the student to write a question paper. So instead of the teacher making the question paper, the teacher asked all the students to make the question papers. And when the students make the question papers, the teacher make a question papers, gathering the questions from each of the students. And that's how the question paper is designed for the each test. So students are really happy to see their question papers, questions being in the question paper. And in the impact side, the teacher is able to see that one, the students are reading the textbooks so that they can make the hardest question possible. And the second, they're also able to see that at least some of the questions the students are able to answer, because one or two questions appear in the question paper which is framed by these students. So definitely there is not a larger impact, but definitely their teachers are able to see a smaller impact, which the students are able to understand the questions and score better results in the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, so now we're just going to do quick introductions. First, if you don't know who I am, I'm the co-founder of Edudemic, which is the world's largest education technology website. We have a few million people come every month, and they learn how to use social media, technology, games, and everything in the classroom, which is exactly what we're talking about today. So now I'm going to introduce, or have each panelist introduce themselves, and they're going to take just a few minutes to outline who they are, what they do, and then I wanted them to have a key takeaway that you should all have from this panel. Take it away.
My name is Mahmoud Abu Nasr. I am the Egyptian Minister of Education. I'm a professor at Ain Shams University, Faculty of Engineering. This is before this job. Now we are working in finishing a master plan, a strategic plan for Egypt for short term, medium term, and long term. The short term 14-17, the medium term 17-22, and the long term 22 to 30. It will be applied to the cabinet to have the approval of it. We did something to this strategy is to apply many things like smart learning, STEM schools, and education, learning the students in early how to write, how to read, because we have a lot of students who have 18.5 million students in Egypt, and we have more than 48,000 schools. We are looking to have more than 10,000 schools, because the density is very high in the schools, and if you would like to have a good learning, we have to decrease the density, because the density in some governorate reach 120 students per class. This is too much. We are looking forward to reach 45 students per class.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I believe 3 minutes is a very short time to talk about 18 months of work that we've carried out in the UAE. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mohammed Gheyath. I'm in charge of Mohammed bin Rashid Smart Learning Program. I'm not sure if everyone in the room has heard about it. It's about the education reform program that has been initiated in 2012 by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid, who was our guest today. He initiated the program to perform the education reform as he foresees for the next decades in UAE. The main pillars of the education reform that we worked on was the introduction of technology into the education system. For one purpose only, it's to enhance the education outcomes and to build the skill sets of students and teachers simultaneously. The introduction of technology has been an enormous help and support and a big catalyst for the change in UAE, because it helped expedite and excel all the changes programs that have been already planned in the past, but were very slow and very problematic in terms of implementation. Technology has assisted us to move on with these changes and go ahead with the reformation to become one of the best nations in education in the world. The program is a holistic program. It covers the entire ecosystem of education, being the stakeholders, the school managers, the teachers, students, the Ministry of Education, employees, and relevant departments, all the way to the home environment and the society that the students live in, interact with, and act on as well. So the program covered the entire school system, meaning the curriculum, the assessment, as well as the teacher training, and involved the introduction of gamification or games and social media into the education system. It's been very successful. We've started in September 2012. We had a full deployment in September 2013, a few months ago. We've covered 123 schools, approximately 11,000 students, over 1,300 teachers, and we've seen a very positive feedback from these schools, from the teachers and students. We've seen some magnificent and extraordinary success stories, success initiatives from the students and teachers. We'll be happy to share with you whenever there's time. So that's in brief and nutshell what the smart learning is about in UAE. Thank you.
It's fantastic. Hello, my name is Berte. I'm the CEO and founder of Socrative. And we are a classroom tool for measuring and visualizing student understanding in real time. So I was a former teacher, and when in the classroom, I always felt like there were two basic things that were wrong with assessments. On the first hand, they were extremely time consuming. So between the construction, distribution, and grading of assessments, I was spending multiple hours per week on something that could be automated. The other piece was that I was really missing the data when it mattered, the formative assessment component of teaching, which is during class time, how can I really see what my students understand during the time when I actually want to make changes and can impact what we do for the second half of class? How can I adjust homework? So as a result, we built Socrative, and we created this platform with three basic premises at the core mission of it. First, it should be completely device agnostic. So we're a web-enabled platform, but we instantly built iOS apps, Android apps, Windows apps, and we work on all browsers. So we did not want the type of technology being brought into a school to be a limiting factor to usage. We have over 650,000 teachers currently using us in 150 countries worldwide. Another reason why that is happening is we made it very simple to use. We wanted a very low-risk proposition for teachers to get started. If we're asking teachers to change practice and start to use technology, we need to be able to offer them a low-risk, small amount of time way to do it so that they're not investing 3, 4, 5 hours into potentially making a change that makes them nervous or maybe is moving them in their zone of proximal development just a bit too far. So you have to have access points in which teachers can begin to do something that will show them another way of teaching without having to make them use too many hours in it. The other piece is that we would heavily promote what we do via social media. So we've gained all of our teachers strictly from the bottom up through Twitter, Pinterest, Facebook. We actually try and meet teachers where they are and start conversations amongst teachers so that they can communicate together around best practices and how they can crowdsource quality uses in the class. So we can suggest ways in which teachers may choose to implement us, but where the real vibrancy and usage comes in is when they use social media in order to share that content among themselves and really feel like they begin to own it, and then they begin to really push the use case and the ability for the tool to make impact in their classroom.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vicki Davis. I am a classroom teacher, full-time classroom teacher. I taught Thursday, jumped on a plane, and came here. I blog at a blog called the Cool Cat Teacher Blog, so I've already friended some of you on Twitter today. And I'm really part of a movement of teachers that are connecting through Twitter. Teachers are tired of waiting for bureaucracies to connect us, and we are connecting through Twitter chats. We're talking to each other. My students collaborate with teachers and with classrooms all over the world now. Now, when you think about scalable, mobile technologies, I tried to think about what's in my classroom that some of you may be interested in asking questions about. First of all, the solution to student engagement is not excitement and entertainment. It helps, but not every person is exciting and entertaining. Some teachers are boring. They are. So we have to be careful about saying the solution is excitement and entertainment. It is an inspiring curiosity in our students. We need to make them more curious. We need to help them create. We need to help them collaborate and work together. So when you look at creation, there's something educators talk about called Bloom's taxonomy. Lower order thinking, and a lot of you are nodding your heads, so you are educators. I'm glad to see you here. Lower order thinking, the bottom is memorizing. Testing measures lower order thinking typically. Create is at the top of Bloom's taxonomy. So we want to move our students to the top. So when students are creating, for example, every school, just like you issue a locker and textbooks, every student should be issued an email from their school. It's amazing how many schools still don't do this. So every student should have an email. That's just a very basic thing that they need to have. Digital notebook systems like Evernote. A lot of schools are creating notebooks so the teachers can share the notes with the students. Google Drive, OneNote, those are other apps. Do students know how to share? It's called transliteracy. Are they literate in multiple ways? So can they write? Can they film? Can they create photographs? Can they do that and share in that way? Digital storage is very important. I'm part of a BYOD, Bring Your Own Device program. We use Dropbox. So I don't have the money for digital cameras and film. We no longer use that. They use their iPhone, they use their Droid, they use whatever they have. And what Ben said about platform agnostic is vital because whatever the student has, we want to be able to use that. And then I believe a student without a blog is a student without a voice. It is a very different form of writing to blog than to write an essay. So many schools teach essay writing, and my second book that'll be out in June is called Reinventing Writing. It's about what is the new way of writing and how do we teach that. And there's so many ways you can do that. There's Edmodo, which is free. There's VoiceThread. There's Wikispaces, EduBlogs, Kid Blogs. And I know I'm giving you a lot of links, but if you go to my blog later, that's my voice, coolcatteacher.com, I'll post all these links for you, and you can get those later. The other thing I want to mention is collaboration. My students collaborate all over the world, and right now they're doing a project called Gamified. And they are creating a database of serious games with researchers from the University of Alaska Southeast and some other educators in Canada. So they've developed this rubric for how we evaluate games. And what we found is that our education app stores for mobile learning are pretty much shams. And I'm willing to go on the record and say that. Because what we're finding is that the things that are recommended as the best education apps for teaching math or teaching algebra are not fitting with what we know about education research to be the best. So I would challenge you as you go back to your countries to start vetting and start testing apps and games and things that you use with your students. The other thing that I would just challenge you to consider is there is a powerful role that games can play. Games can be fun, but it doesn't mean that they can't tackle very serious topics. My students participate in the Arab-Israeli conflict simulation out of the University of Michigan, where they play world leaders. And it's about a 6-week simulation. It's a fantastic simulation experience where kids all over the world are really delving into some of the most important issues of today. And I live in a tiny town in South Georgia, 3.5 hours out of Atlanta, very rural. And for my students to see their worldview change without traveling is profound. And it's something that all of us need to do. We cannot afford to fly our students around the world, but there's no reason we cannot connect our students through the internet in powerful ways. And there are a lot of us teachers who are already doing it. You can tweet me and I'll give you the hashtags where we're collaborating, because we're connecting now and sharing best practices. We don't have to be islands anymore. It's very empowering, and there are a lot of very excited teachers out here too.
Hello everyone, I'm Hayley McQuire, and I am the Australian Youth Advocate on the Youth Advocacy Group for the UN Global Education First Initiative, and I'm also a UNICEF Australia Youth Ambassador. I guess as we can see that mobile technology, social media and educational gaming are having incredible impacts in terms of redefining how education is delivered around the world. And I would like to focus on how mobile technology and e-learning are being applied by Indigenous radio stations in Australia. To provide some context, Indigenous Australians are the most socially and economically marginalised groups in Australia. And to put this into perspective, prior to 1967, Indigenous Australians were not even recognised as human beings, rather were classed as flora and fauna in Australia's constitution. So today, Indigenous children in Australia have the lowest learning outcomes. Indigenous radio stations are a means of overcoming such marginalisation by providing a platform for Indigenous people to have a voice. Radio stations act beyond the remit of just broadcasting information. They act as a central hub connecting Indigenous people around the nation with each other and with opportunities to employment. Education, when facilitated through these radio stations, act both as a precursor and as an engagement tool for Indigenous young people to attend formal education. In fact, if it weren't for my local radio station, I would not be talking to you today. At the age of 18, I began working at my local Indigenous radio, and it was there that I learned about politics. I was given a platform to talk with my local community about issues that are affecting them, and I was able to complete an accredited vocational qualification. I was able to achieve this vocational qualification because another Indigenous radio station in Brisbane, some 700 kilometres away, had established its own training program and delivered accredited media training through an online platform. I was able to access and apply this learning towards the context of my local community. This experience helped me to build fundamental life skills like confidence, self-esteem, aspirations, communication and social engagement skills. And today I'm studying at university. I'm able to advocate at an international level in front of all of you. And I work in a full-time job as a learning and development officer for the peak body representing this exact sector, Indigenous radio stations, the sector that gave me my chance. So what is significant about this approach is the fact that Indigenous media professionals are being recognised as educators and stakeholders in a child's education. And Indigenous young people have access to a culturally sensitive learning environment where they feel included and accepted. They are able to gain qualifications that contribute towards a high school certificate and in some cases have direct access into tertiary education. But I suppose what is really important about this approach is the fact that Indigenous young people are able to stay connected within their communities and learn where they live. This is why it's important that when we talk about mobile learning, we aren't limiting the view to mobile technology only. Rather, we must think about mobile learning as an enabler to learning wherever you are. I must also say that e-learning and learning through social media alone is not the silver bullet. It should be supplementary to the formal education system. The reason why this approach has been so influential for marginalised Indigenous young people is because they gain the fundamental life skills needed to succeed within the formal education system from an alternative learning environment in their communities where they felt safe and included. Thank you.
All right, so this is going to be a little bit of a freewheeling discussion, and I want it to involve you. So I'm going to ask just one or two questions of our panel, and then I'm going to turn it over to you. So we'll have a microphone circulating, and just raise your hand, and she will come over to you, just like that. She will come over to you, and you can ask your question where you just introduce yourself, and then ask your question. Try to be as succinct and brief as possible because we're already only down to about 40 minutes left in this conversation. So just to get things started, I wanted to ask a question that you can actually all answer. We'll just start one at a time though. So what are some of the biggest challenges with integrating education technology? And I'm lucky that we have this panel here because the panelists range from massive state size to all the way down to the classroom. And I'd love to hear your insight. So, biggest challenges that you've seen.
Yes, it is a very big challenge because we have a lot of people, we have a lot of students. We don't like to start from zero. We have to start from the end of the other experience. We have already a good connection with the smart learning people here. They came 2 weeks ago. They make assessment our system. We have applied our system, e-learning system or smart learning system for 9 governors right now. We need to have the experience. We need to have the success stories from others to build on it, to use it. We have already good support from the government, good support from the media, because we need to be something good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Jeff. I believe that from the experience that we had for the past 18 months, the biggest challenge was the human capacity, the people who are involved in the change. It's a change process. You have a system that's running for hundreds of years, and you want to change it, and you want to do a rapid change. So the engagement of the human capacity, the human factor was very important. We had to go through lots of change program management and lots of training, lots of adoption for the teachers to be involved with us and accept the program as it is, because the teachers have to go through lots of changes in the way they teach, the teaching styles, the engagement with the students, the expectations from the students to the teachers. So all of that had to go through a massive change program. That was one of the biggest challenges we had. Secondly, we're introducing a technology that is, it's there already in the hands of the students as children at their homes. So there was a big gap between the school environment and the home environment. All the children who come to school had access to all kinds of technology. They had access to all kinds of social media. They were engaged with their society, their peers, their friends. But when they come to school, they come to a very closed, restrictive environment. So for us to create such an engaging environment in the school for the students to be so engaged and excited to be part of it was a big challenge. And we had to go through lots of changes in terms of the curriculum adaptation to the introduction of technology. So we did not change the devices and the access in the classroom only. We had to go through changes in the curriculum itself, providing lots of digital content that is more engaging for the students, and change even the pedagogy behind it, so that students will become more attracted to the classroom, to the teacher, to the lesson, and become more demanding. We wanted to create an environment where the students become more demanding in terms of knowledge requirements. So it's just like a game. When you play a level, you go to the next level. So how to create that excitement and set engagement for the students so they move from one level to another level. What kind of game characteristics we can embed into the curriculum, into the lessons that we provide for them. If we don't want to introduce games as games because of excitement, you said, or the thrill factor, how to change the curriculum and the content that we have to become more game-based or more game approach. So students will ask and demand for more level. And we've seen lots of changes and lots of good examples in the schools since the implementation. We're not there yet. We have very good examples and good success stories on the engagement of students and teachers beyond the school environment, which was a surprise for us. We did provide all the social media platform for them throughout our platform, our main gateway, Smart Learning Gateway. And we've opened the communication channel between the students themselves, their peers, the students and the teachers. And we created a community of teachers where they can engage with each other. But what we did not expect to see such level of engagement and interaction beyond the school hours. And we've seen that the amount of interactions were recorded as high as 1 million interactions in 3 months between the students and teachers outside the classroom environment. That was a success, a big success for us. We anticipated a lot of engagement in the classroom, but nothing outside the classroom. But we've seen that more and more students are engaged with each other beyond the classroom and the teachers, which is very exciting for us. Yeah. Thank you.
That's great. To echo Mohammed's first point, I really think the human capital piece is one of the big challenges, and I think it's a lot on the expectations of having patience in teachers who've been successfully navigating the classroom for a number of years to suddenly having devices in the room and giving them time to learn what it's like to manage a classroom with devices and figure out how they can actually accomplish the solutions to the problems that they've been having and how technology can begin to solve those problems. So giving teachers time to be creative, to make mistakes, and that's one piece, and that's from us who are really wanting to move things forward rapidly because technology is iterating and growing so quickly, yet the profession is not caught up yet, and so we need to be patient and take the time to figure it out. On the second, it's infrastructure. Handheld devices are prevalent, and I don't know if you know this, but we had a massive rollout in Los Angeles this year where 640,000 iPads were rolled out to a number of schools, and after the rollout, there was a study that said only 23% of the schools actually had sufficient Wi-Fi in order to work with all of these iPads. So what we're often finding is that these handheld devices are so prevalent and they're in everybody's hands, yet the school's bandwidth is not prepared to accept that kind of drag on the system. And it's a very off-putting occurrence for a teacher when they have an activity and they want to run it, but yet there's a breakdown in success of the activity due to the infrastructure not being able to perform because maybe the classroom next door is pulling on the network at the same time. So we need to be very thoughtful about having our schools have the bandwidth to handle the devices. It's not just one device. Students are coming in with a tablet in their backpack and a phone in their pocket. It's pulling on multiple times in these institutions. So we really need to take that step back and work on infrastructure.
I think the biggest challenge is that you can't buy change. I know principals and governors and even people at the highest levels in the United States and beyond. You fight to get money to put in interactive whiteboards or whatever, and then you go to the schools and they're not being used. That's because, and this is the example I like to use with teachers, is that if I had Albert Einstein in the room and you went up and rubbed his forehead, you would not get smarter. You don't get smarter by the presence of Albert Einstein. You get smarter by interacting with Albert Einstein. It's how do you use the tools. That's the important part. And I found that I was tweeting with someone this morning, and they said mobiles, I hate mobiles because they're competition. You've got two choices with technology. Technology can be competition or it can be complementary. I use technology to teach. So in my classroom, it's very complementary. I don't view it as competition. I know how to handle issues, just like passing notes. I know how to deal with texting when it's not appropriate. I have a little box on my desk, and it goes into detention until it's time to use the mobile again. I have control of my classroom. I can decide what to do. But when you only use it as a fancy way to take notes, and you're not making it exciting, you've got competition because it's more entertaining to play a game than it is. They're not using the device for which it's intended. The other thing, I love what you said about leveling up, because that's so important. And the esteemed minister from Egypt is an engineer. My husband's an engineer. And here's the things we're teaching now are harder than the things we've ever had to teach. We have to level up our education because we want to level up our economies. We have STEM. We need to do that. And how are we going to do it? Let me give you one example of games. My 12-year-old loves Minecraft. Anybody have a child or someone that loves Minecraft? I see hands going up. Well, I found out about a thing called Digital University, and they use Minecraft to teach Java. So one Saturday, my son tested this Digital University course, and within 6 hours, he understood the basics of variables and programming in Java by building upon his love for Minecraft. See, that's how education can be our friend. We can use it to teach coding. You can use things like Codable and Scratch and Alice and all of these free tools that you can use to help teach coding on the basis of games, which students already love.
Yeah, I think in the context that I work, it's about how do we engage parents in online learning. So in terms of access to home computers where they can continue their studies, that kind of access just isn't available for a lot of Indigenous children, and so they rely on that central hub within the radio station where they can access a computer. And so how do you also engage the parents who might have low digital literacy in supporting their child's education in this format?
That's great. All right, now comes the audience interaction part. We're going to raise your hand. I'll call on you. Please introduce yourself, keep your question brief, and if you want to direct the question to someone in particular on the panel, make sure you do that. We'll start right up here.
Hi, my name is Rehan. I'm from Pakistan, and we have developed a school on mobile phone for stupid phones, not for smart. And we use celebrities as teachers like Mr. Bean, Amitabh Bachchan, Tom Cruise. Imagine they being teachers and the entertainment content being education. So that's something which I have here if anybody wants to have a look. It's a $15 phone, which is a school in a box. But I wanted to actually echo the Vicki's voice. I'm standing here doing what I'm doing today because of an email I answered 16 years ago from a school teacher in Pensacola, Florida. And that was regarding engagement with students. And this teacher was looking for someone who to interact with globally. And then I started teaching the teachers, the students, and I became a partner in education with a school in Carver Middle School in Carver, Florida, a very small town up in Florida. And then later on, that same person became a partner of mine. I started a company, made enough money, sold the company, started doing this. So I just wanted to echo that if more teachers can be what Vicki is doing, I think it will change a lot of lives around the world, and it will change into a better society for everyone. We can't travel. Most of us couldn't travel, and those students have never been to Pakistan. Our students have never been there, but they're buddies, friends, and a lot of things can change just by communicating. Thank you.
Great.
Rehan, that's so important. And my first book is Flattening Classrooms, Engaging Minds, that I co-wrote with a teacher who was first in Bangladesh, and now she's in Australia, and founded more than 15 global projects. And students can travel without traveling, but I believe students are the greatest textbook ever written for each other. You can study about China, but when you do it from a perspective of a textbook, you tend to stereotype. Because if you start comparing our textbooks, you're going to find very different stories. I mean, when my students talk to kids in England about what we call the Revolutionary War, I mean, they don't even study it. It's not even important in England. It's kind of, the U.S. just went off and did its own thing. So when you really start comparing notes, it's amazing the worldview that emerges when we connect. There are a lot of people who are afraid of doing that, though, afraid of connecting.
She'll walk the microphone back to you.
My name is Karim. I'm from Egypt, and my question is to Dr. Mahmoud. Can you please explain to us, with your limited budget, the Ministry of Education, why did you introduce the tablets in the education, and how have you done it? Thank you.
good questions. You know that we are going to apply the smart learning to the secondary schools only. We will start it in 3 phases. The first phase for 9 governorate, and the second phase for another 9. And the third one will be the last 9. We have already budget for the technology. And you know, if you have a budget, you don't use it, you will return it to the government, you will not take it again. This is the first one. Then we have to to have it, to use it, and we have to change. We have to start to change. You know, as I said, we cannot start from zero every time. We will start from the end of the others, other experience, other success stories. And you know, Egypt must have a good learning, good in everything, because we have to return again to have a very good students. We have to have a very good students with new technology. And also we have some fund from Emirates. We have some fund from NGOs. We have some fund from our factories. We have ideas to work to have self-financing. Then we have another fund from self-financing.
Good morning. Good afternoon, I'm sorry. My name is Karim as well, and I'm also from Egypt. Hi. I'm not going to ask my question to His Excellency the Minister. My question goes actually to everyone on the podium. I really like what I've been hearing, because the whole idea is we want to challenge the students, to ask them to be more creative, to be more challenging, to be more critical, more analytical, to not take the givens for granted and everything. By all means, the use of mobile technology and the technology in social media is great for that. But my question is, how do you bring discipline with this? Because we want to educate the people also to have discipline about the education process. And I don't mean by discipline obedience. I mean the discipline of research, the discipline of confirming the information you get off the social media before you say this is the right information, the discipline of planning your research, of planning your interaction, and to achieve through social media. And that's something that I haven't heard being said around the panel. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. Is there anybody who wants to cover it?
Well, I ran out of time, or else I would have talked about citizenship. That is very important to teach students about citizenship and how to discern, just like reading a newspaper. You know, how to discern things and how to figure that out. I teach the 5 steps of online safety. It's stop, screenshot, block, tell, and share. The first thing you need to teach kids who get mobile devices is how to take a screenshot. And that's not even being talked about.
If I may add, actually in the introduction of the program, we ensured that all the students and teachers are aware of basic ideas like copyright, IPRs, when they bring content. It's about digital content, and content could come from anywhere. The information is there on the internet. What is really allowed, what's not allowed for you in terms of other people's rights. So part of the training that we provided for the teachers and the students was on the IPRs and copyrights of material that you can find online, and how you're going to use them, and what's the best way to approach the copyright owners if you have a copyrighted material. In addition to that, the basic ethics and basic principles that are taught through the school is still there. I mean, we didn't change anything. It's just the freedom of the way to deliver the information that's changed from the teacher's perspective. So information is there. Anyone can access it. So how do you access information, and how you build your skill sets for the students in order to be able to correlate between the information they find on the web, on whatever sources they have, to their actual needs, to their academic needs, to their education needs, to their personal needs, and their aspirations. How these informations are related to what they want. But yeah, discipline is a must, and there are different steps to be taken, different actions to be taken as well.
Hi, My name is Sausan Speta. I'm corporate social responsibility for GEMS. My question is actually anyone can answer about how do you protect children on the net? When you teach children how to use it as games or they are 24/7 on the net, do you teach them how to protect themselves? Do you give them the tools how to really, because we have so many problems that comes with technology, addiction, laziness, social isolated, sexual harassing. More than 2 million child, they get sexually harassed on the net. So do you teach that? This is my first question. My second question, usually in the Arabic world, it's different than the States or Europe. Teachers, the moment they are graduating from the university, they become teachers. So they really don't get education about child rights or even child psychology. So how do we really do that in the Arab world? Because we believe that children don't have right. We have teachers who are illiterate. So how can we really educate children when our teachers are not really educated with the new technology? So anyone can answer my two questions. Thank you.
Well, I have opinions on this. And first of all, let me say that children 4 years and younger are supposed to be very limited on their screen time. I don't know if it's a problem in any other country, but in the United States, very often people use iPads and iPhones to babysit their children. That's a very bad idea. That's not supposed, and so it's something called digital health and wellness. And you do need to talk about addictive behaviors. The modern family should not be everyone sitting at a table texting and on their phone, because I believe in personal relationships. And that's important to nurture, so there's balance. But if you look at new technologies, you have TV, you have radio, you have all these things that have been added. The old technologies didn't go away. We just added a new one on top, and then we learned how to live with it. And I don't think that we've learned how to live well with it. But when people always say, well, we need to get rid of phones because of all the bad things happening, I always ask, well, are you getting rid of the hallways in the lunchroom? Because in the lunchroom, the kids are leaving each other out. In the halls, they're bullying each other. So anywhere students, we have bricks and we have clicks. So as you move online, you're going to have clicks for your school. And we have to teach students how to interact in every space. But you're totally right. Educators don't understand how to help students get along in those spaces. And I think that everything has to be age appropriate. That I don't take my students public until they're 13. I have them in private spaces blogging before I take them into a public space, before they're ready with that. Now my 10th graders actually have Twitter accounts and use that for their Genius projects, but they're not ready for that until, and that's under my direct supervision. There's some students I wouldn't take online because they can't be trusted in that way. So you have to, but it's, you know, not every country, not every situation is ready for what my students are doing. That's not realistic for everybody, but there are ways. There are kindergarten teachers that are using Twitter to connect with parents, to connect with experts. They're talking to authors. They're getting great people to come and do Google Hangouts and Skype with them through these things.
Sorry if I made that again, just a couple of points on the security of using, how safe it is to use the technology for the children. We started with the age group of 12 to 13 years old, 11 to 13 years old. We haven't started the lower age group of students. And we're not planning to introduce tablets or any personalized devices to students in the lower grades at this stage. So we are doing lots of studies and pilots and assessment before we decide when we're going to start at which age. So definitely group age 4 and below are not going to have their own tablets or personalized devices with a touch screen or any smart boards. But talking about the elder ages who are actually involved in their home environment, not on the schools. They have their own mobile phones, they have their own tablets at home. So they do access internet. As you mentioned, the society here is different than Europe and the United States. Probably the internet access is more restrictive here than elsewhere. So that's covered from the home perspective. But in the schools, we have limited our systems and our platforms to access educational content mainly at this stage. So we're not opening all the websites for the students. We've adopted the whitelist approach versus blacklist approach. So there are certain limited websites that they can access. There's some limited content that they can view at this stage, and we're going to examine to which extent we're going to enlarge on it further and further. In addition to that, we've introduced a cybersecurity curriculum in the subjects that are being taught by the Minister of Education. So the Minister of Education, in coordination with a group of experts within UAE, have a cybersecurity curriculum which talks about what's safe on the internet, what's not, how to secure your devices, how to secure yourself being a child on the internet, and how to engage with the vast environment in the internet. So that's an additional term. And of course, through the adoption team that we have in the schools, there's a continuous monitoring on the schools, on the students' behavior when they are in the classroom, because they aren't our responsibility. Once they go home, it's the responsibility of the parents and the actual society that's surrounding them. So those are the attempts we did, because we know that this is important. We're providing access to students, but one thing we always forget that is we're providing access to everyone to that student. It's two-way communication, the tablets and the internet. Yes, the students are going to the internet, but the entire internet community is reaching the student at the same time. So how to protect that student from this environment, which is unknown for them.
I think there's also a responsibility for the educators to engage in some of the social media tools if they're setting up situations for their students to use them during class time. So if teachers are using blogs, or teachers are using Pinterest, or teachers are using Twitter for their students, it's important that the teachers have fluency with them themselves and they can actually understand how these tools are truly being used. There's a game Zynga that teachers use to work with spelling in the US, and it's actually students are simply sitting on there tweeting each other during class, and they're communicating. And if a teacher doesn't have a true understanding of how the tool can be used and the factors of that tool, then students will find ways to interact in the tools that may be appropriate or inappropriate. And so I think it's very important for it to be a part of the fabric of the school that tools that are introduced are actually understood across the board.
Hi, my name is Esmat Lamay, and I am from Egypt. I want to share with you our experience. We have the iPad one-to-one now for 2 years, and it's an IB school. We offer the 3 program of the IB in French. And first of all, the first challenge for us, it was the teachers, because they're very afraid to use the iPad, and the children knows better than them. The second, like you said now, the problems that we face before to give the iPad to students, everybody sit together, the children, the parents, everybody, and we wrote, like regulation to be sure that they will not use anything, it's not good. And for the IB, like you said, we have plagiarism, and student already knows if they will do something like that, it's not good for them. This is our experience in the iPad, and I think it's successful for now. It's not only the technology in class, it's like a tool, but in the same time we have to do other things like adventure learning, or they can go out of the classroom, but really it's facilitate the communication between students and the teachers, parents, and everybody. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mr. Brennan. I'm from the James Hampshire School in London, and I've always taught creative writing, and I'll be honest, I've always had a fear that the media way of communicating might hijack my writing classes. And do you as a group worry or see any dangers in the future that we'll reach a point where children will be less willing to write with a pen? Not saying that handwriting is everything, but there's a great therapeutic value sometimes in writing, which I find sometimes more difficult to justify now with the fact that they can get an iPad out very, very quickly and it's all there on screen. Is that an area that you've thought about as a team, or had any thoughts about where this all will take us in the future?
Yeah, if I may, I absolutely support your concern. We do have this concern, actually. That's why when we started with grade 7 students, age 11 and 13, we looked at the previous age groups, how the writing in the classrooms are being managed in terms of the curriculum requirements, the actual progression of writing handwritten exercises for students, to what was the best age, or what was the age where the Minister of Education has stopped giving exercises and assignments on handwritten. So the actual character of a student or a child has been built enough so the handwritten is not going to be forgiven or not. For us, it's extremely important as an Arabic-speaking nation, because writing handwritten in Arabic is an art by itself rather than simply text writing, and it has lots of expressions, an inner expression of a child and an individual. So, and we've seen so many examples where people get, when they are in different moods and they're upset or sad, the only way of relief for them is to write, whether it's to write a novel or a story or even express themselves in writing. So writing is very important. That's why we're taking this extremely with caution for the lower ages, where handwritten or handwriting is essential for them at the very early stages of school. We haven't eliminated the handwritten or handwriting exercises in the schools. We've actually provided the teachers with a whiteboard and pen, a more advanced whiteboard and pen, but they can still use the pen on the whiteboard. And we've given a sliding whiteboard that covers the smart screen that we've provided to them, because we knew that teachers would still need to write on the board, students would still need to write on the board, and we're never going to eliminate this factor at all. It's very important, especially for us as an Arabic culture or an Islamic culture. Handwritten is very important. It's extremely important for us.
Well, in writing on the board, you cross the midline, which helps connect both sides of the brain. So writing is important, but let me just point out writing. I've been taking notes, and this is my Evernote notebook. It has tiny little dots on it. And my iPad is running low because I spent too much time looking over my notes. And so I can actually take pictures of these pages, and it becomes searchable. So all of the things that I write are now no longer lost in a notebook in my filing cabinet. If 6 months down the line, I want to look and see what you mentioned, I can search it in Evernote, and it looks up my handwriting. So we have more ways to use handwriting now than we've ever had with things like having a digital notebook with Evernote, because there are benefits to handwriting and there are benefits to typing.
Yeah, I had a professor at school who, start of a class one day, he asked us about the calculator versus long division. And he wanted us to think of the desert island scenario and if we should still be teaching long division and all of the time it takes to do it compared to just solving a problem on a calculator. And to your creative writing point, and your point to language, what we came to as a class was what's most important is the understanding of how division works and the ability to accurately estimate when you have numbers. And that's a skill that if it's lost by using the calculator, then the technology is a crutch that is being used poorly. And as a creative writer, if you find that your students aren't pacing themselves accurately or being able to express themselves without the handwriting, then we're losing something in technology, which is the purpose of why you're doing your creative writing. And so I actually think, push it back towards you and would wonder over time, are children able to express themselves in these technologies that have become native to them very equally to us with handwriting through our familiarity? And I think time will tell that, but I think the fact that you're asking that question and you're concerned about the loss of handwriting and how that has importance to you is the question that needs to be discussed. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Hassan Bakir. I'm from Syria. I've been involved in e-learning for the last 16 years in the area of education and training. Now my question is to the panel. We've been speaking of the students and the teachers. Now, how about the parents? In this part of the world, lots of the parents will see social media and the web as being a time waster for their kids. And I see it, and I'm sure lots of the people here will agree. When the kids are on the internet, they see it as wasting their time. That's how the parents, or some of the parents, see it. When we start to include e-learning and education using the web, mobile devices, tablet PCs, social media, and so on, how do you, from your experience, how do you think we should treat or educate the parents to handle this and to actually mold with this new approach? Thank you.
Great question.
Yeah. One thing that I think is important is when parents are invited to the school, for any technology tool that's being used in the school, you engage parents with the tools while you're speaking to them. So I think often when parents come to schools, you'll still sit in a room and you'll discuss things face to face, and you'll have that conversation. Yet in the classroom, when you're trying to create an interactive experience, you'll use tools and technologies, and you're actually doing the parents a disservice to be disconnecting them from the ways in which their children are learning and interacting with the technology. So I think one thing that's very important is that when you are gathering parents or you offer a workshop for parents and ways to become more fluent with the tools that they learn, it's a responsibility of the school to pass that along and to share with them what tools are being used.
And so many parents define a good education by the education they received, that all of us, so many of us using technology, get pushback from parents. I had a parent complain about 4 weeks ago because I wasn't using worksheets. And they said, how could I prove learning because I don't use worksheets? And I said, well look at their videos and look at this and look at that. You can't. And so courage and bravery were talked about last night. I loved how the Minister of Education here in this country talked about thinking outside yourself and putting those thoughts out there. Because in New Zealand, I was talking to a guy named Richard Wells, he's iPad Wells on Twitter, about pushback that he gets from putting in iPads. And he says, you know, in New Zealand, it's not a problem. We've really done a good job in this country of convincing parents that we need to move to creating, and they understand why we're doing what we're doing, so we're getting a lot of support. And so I think New Zealand is probably a place we need to look at what they've done with their parents, because a lot of the parents are supporting what they've accomplished there.
And I think it's also important that parents continue to foster this idea of lifelong learning. In Indigenous radio stations where people only have access to a computer in this particular area, parents are going into these stations to learn about the digital technology and literacy. And so both the parent and the child are viewing this technology equally as a learning opportunity. And so it's kind of redefining that, well, it's a time waster type thing.
Where's the microphone?
Oh,
she's
back.
back.
Yeah. You could probably just hear his question.
Coming down to this gentleman in the front.
My name is Stoyan Denchev. I am from Sofia, Bulgaria, university professor. I have a question to all of you. Please give me the answer if it's possible. In contemporary information environment, information society, there is a very strange situation, I think, in a high school. By the national reason, my opinion is that the majority of the students are more qualified than the teachers using information technology. They do not nothing about the content of disciplines, but they're more qualified than the teachers using this technology. Are there some answers how to avoid this, to use some special educators, or to turn to the business, to the university professors, or some special measure to be taken by this to avoid this struggle between the qualified students and not so much qualified teachers? Thank you.
Yeah, I'd love to hear the answer on both sort of the macro scale and the micro scale from the panel.
If I may start, I mean, the best solution is always to give enough technology, introduce enough technology for the teachers to become competent and confident for using it. If you introduce technology as a technology by itself, as an abstract technology, it's a huge thing. And of course, students who are children, who are engaged from day one into this arena, they will be masters of the arena. But if you provide technology to the classrooms, which the teachers are masters and they are the guides and they are the mentors, but the amount of technology that helps them to deliver the information or to lead the classroom or to mentor the classroom. This is what we have been through actually. Our platform is so massive and so diversified that there are lots of features and lots of applications on board the platform itself. But we never introduced all of them, and we're not going to introduce everything. And we'll not unlock all the features because they're too much for the teacher to handle. So a phased approach would be very good. Teachers have the basic minimum requirements of technology to use. They master it, they will ask for more. And that's what happened. In the first 3 months, we introduced the absolute minimum in the classrooms. Then we've received requests from the teachers that they need certain features to be unlocked, certain features to be added to the program or to the platform because they're using it now or they want to have access to it. And it happens gradually. Students, by all means, are going to be better in technology. They live in it, actually. This is their era. There's no chance. And there's nothing we can do to avoid that. There's nothing we can do to reverse that. But to work on the future teachers, not the ones who are in the change program now, we have to embed the education, the actual qualification of teachers has to be changed in their graduation, their colleges. When they graduate to become teachers, they must have classes and curriculums based on technology, based on the use of technology. And that's what's happening in UAE now. There's a special program running on how to graduate teachers who are ICT literate or ICT masters even. But our teachers are working in the education system. So the phased approach is number one. And ensuring that the teachers do not lose the master of the classroom. The teacher, when they enter, any teacher who enters the classroom would always like to be the master of the classroom. Now there are different terminologies used in the mastery of the classroom. It could be a dictator, it could be a leader, it could be a guide, it could be a mentor. It's the way you want to run the classroom within your system. So don't lose that part. Let the teacher still feel that he is the mentor or she is the mentor and the guide. She is the leader of the classroom, but with the minimum requirement that she could really master it.
If I could recommend one book to read, it would be The Influencer by Carrie Patterson. It's on the research of change, and in that book he talks about the eradication, or they're getting very close to eradicating the guinea worm. And the one thing they found with change is that you can't have consultants come in and tell people what to do. You have to empower the people that are there. So I love what President Clinton said today about Shanghai. And the first thing they did was to connect teachers within the school to share best practices. And I believe that's the best way to change. When you start in the United States, a lot of the planning time, because of the budget crunch, their solution is to have the teachers teach more classes and to cut out planning time. And it's making it harder to implement education technology. So every school is a little bit different. So I think you take your change makers within the school, you give teachers more time to learn from each other and to empower each other about how to teach. Because here's the thing, students may know what buttons to push, but they don't know how to push learning through that device. They have, and that's our expertise. That's what we have to learn how to do. And I mean, I kind of feel like I'm somewhat on the forefront, but I learn new things every day. So it's very emerging. It's an exciting time to be in education. It really is. It's a tough time, but I mean, we've never had a change like this in recent history where, you know, since really the invention of the mass-produced paper. And even then, it didn't change much. So this is a very exciting time to be an innovator.
That's great. We probably have time for about 2 more questions. Where's the microphone? You can go right in front.
Hi, my name is Khalid. As a founder and an owner of mobility technology security company, and also a father of 5 kids, I really learned a lot of good information from this session today about educating and learning with my kids. So I thank you for that. Some comment about the technology in general. A lot of the points of your concerns, technology does have the solution for it today, like the issue about the bandwidth or the security or the content or the control. It is available. It is controllable, but it's also, I must say, scary in terms of bandwidth. The latest analyst are saying that on the average, the person will be requiring 1 gig per person. So if you take a classroom or a school, you can do the math. It's huge, the amount of internet bandwidth they need to access content. But that can be controlled so that we don't open it up. Also, you have to keep your security, your content as a school secured from the students, not to get into that. And the students, as some of you said, are masters and they will always hack. Hacking to them is also a game. They'll play and they are masters in it. And our security will have to catch up with them instead of us catching with them. Now, the question I have is, there has been initiatives about schools where everything is online. There is no books, nothing called paper and pencil. It's all iPad or BYOD, like you said. That's it. So everything is digitized. Everything is content, internet. So there is nothing called papers in these schools. So in your opinion, are these initiatives, are they good initiatives? Are they successful? You see this really happening or somebody trying that's something that will never be successful? So what's your feedback on these initiatives? Thank you.
So really, let's look at what we think the long-term effect of all these initiatives, whether it's one-to-one or BYOD, is right now. Is it just a flash in the pan, or is it something long-term?
Well, I guess it's going to be very difficult to judge on one implementation or example. Every nation or every country has its own requirements, its own circumstances. It might be successful in certain countries, but not necessarily in every country. But it's a judgment that you have to make when you plan for such a change. At which stage you are now, you do assess your situation now, where you want to reach in the future, and what is the future for you, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and what is the really required outcome out of this change. For us, we had 2 sets of objectives. We had outcomes of the program and outputs of the program. We implemented the program so we could see some outputs in terms of introduction of technology, ease of delivering the lessons to the students, more engagement, more interactive students, more creative students. But what outcomes it has, we will never be able to see. I will never be able to see, because outcomes are very long-term things to look at. We're looking at a whole generation that has to go through the change. So is it good that you do a change so rapidly that everything is digitized and you wait for a whole generation to pass through and then you find out what mistakes you made and change it? I think it's all dependent on the environment that you are within. So it's something that you can't judge just like that. It's successful or not.
I think high-speed internet is a great opportunity for any place that's rural. My sister teaches online for Savannah College of Art and Design. She's a professor. And she has students from all over the world. She had a student who just graduated from South Africa. And I think that e-learning, a lot of the reason for it is there are many people in remote rural places that want to stay there. They love their homes. They love their families. I'm an example. I live in a tiny town of 5,000. And the internet means that I can share with the world and I can stay in Camilla, Georgia, which nobody's ever heard of. So e-learning, a lot of it is because people everywhere want to learn. So it's a great opportunity. And, you know, it's amazing to see what you're doing with radio. But e-learning could do so much if somebody will invest. It breaks my heart that you said that indigenous people were considered flora and fauna. And, you know, you're the people in this room that need to do things to bring e-learning to rural areas and to the indigenous of Australia. I just hope that everybody's listened to your message because it's really touched me.
That's great. We're going to take one final question, and we'll try to keep it as brief as possible. The big clock over here says 0, so right here in front, and then that'll be it.
Hello, my name is Susanna, and I work with Supertech Foundation on the mobile technologies, bringing mobile telephone-based education in Pakistan. So I have a question for you, Vicki, because I work with teachers to switch them onto basically this platform. And one of the biggest issue we face is they don't want to share. They don't want to collaborate. So I would like to ask, how do you get the teachers to collaborate with each other, to share their knowledge, what they have, and allow the students to interact with other teachers? Thank you.
Well, I think that we have to change what it means to be a teacher. I like to say teachers who care share. But you know, the other thing with teachers, that teachers tend to be very humble people. So many of the best teachers, I teach next door to the lady who taught me literature. And she's fantastic. And she's taught my children. She has 9 published authors who've come through her program. She's won Star Teacher for almost 30 years now. And when we had a film crew come on campus to film me, and they said, who's the best teacher? And I said, Betsy Caldwell next to me. And she didn't want to be filmed. Because she says, I'm nothing special, I'm just a teacher. You know, and that's what I said when you asked me to be on the panel. I'm just a teacher, why would you want me? We're looking at the dignitaries that are here. And I think we have to redefine what it means to be just a teacher. That we share because we care, and we love our profession, we have a noble profession. And we need to help each other because it's hard to teach now. It's not easy to do this, but it can be done, and you can fall in love with teaching all over again if you do it right.
Great. I'd love to thank all the panelists, and feel free to give them a round of applause. I appreciate it.